Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about supplemental exercises to increase our primary lifts. So, in the case of this, I usually recommend that people use the squat, bench, and deadlift as their primary exercises. And again, that's not because they're all power lifters. Most people are not power lifters, but I've made numerous videos explaining why it makes a lot of sense to use these movements as main lifts. And that's well and good, but when we start talking about getting better at these lifts, we also have to realize that there are going to be exercises that increase these exercises for us. For the novice, that's not so important. I mean, I've literally taken novices and had them squat, bench, deadlift, row, and do some band press downs and just program it well, and they get big and strong, pretty dang quick. But as we start to get more advanced, what is the thing that we run into? Well, we can't always just progress on our big lifts. We have weak links in those big lifts. We have stimulus to fatigue issues. And so, it can come over to a question of what is going to increase these lifts. Now, I didn't really discuss anything for lats and biceps here because that's kind of a separate thing. I tend to program rowing and things for that, and then of course curls as needed. But for the big three, here's what I'm going to say to people. You're going to find that you're going to have exercises that have direct carryover. In other words, when you start messing with different supplemental lifts, and a good coach can learn to look at where your weak links are, identify it, and pick exercises to do this. But in my case, just for this clip, I'm working with exercises that I know at the time of this, have carryover for me, that have helped me build these lifts. And at this time, you guys see my squat is way down because I didn't really squat for a bit. I neglected my legs. So obviously I've got 435 on the bar there for a triple. That's, below what people expect from me, right? But that's in the rotation because this is the stuff that I was doing the week that this video is recorded. And these are done ahead of time. So I know that based upon my different training history, where my weak points are at the time of this video, because all of my big three have been slightly stronger at different times than say they are of what you guys see right here. Because I think it's like a 315 for 5 bench. It's not my best. 545 for 3 deadlift. Again, kind of fatigued. Again, I've done this for 5 reps before. And then the squat's down. But you also see this week me doing some supplemental lifts in there that have good carryover. And so for me, when I identify a lot of times my weak links on the movements where I tend to see the form break down, where I get the most fatigue, I know that different exercises have carryover to fix that. And this is just part of picking our movement. So in my case, you'll see me adding 3 exercises to this that really, really help my weakest links on those movements. You notice it's the glute ham raise. Weighted glute ham raises have direct carryover to my deadlift. I can almost predict what my deadlift rep maxes will be based upon how much weight for how many reps I can use on a glute ham raise. Again, as long as my setting is consistent, I haven't changed it. So for me, I know that however many reps I can get will tell me exactly where my rep maxes are going to be. I see direct carryover. Okay, now people say, but it doesn't work all the muscles of the deadlift. Of course not, but it tends to work my weaker links. My hamstrings, and granted, I have an elite deadlift. My hamstrings and my grip tend to be what impact my deadlift the most. All right, you'll see me doing some incline benching here, and I think right here it's like a set of 5 at 225, all paused. All right, that is not my best incline work. It scales perfectly with my benching. So in other words, what you see me benching there in that same clip is pretty indicative of about where my strength is when I can incline 225. For 5 pause reps. I can probably only 315 bench for 5 reps at that point, because that's about where it scales. The belt squats have direct carryover to my back squat. Okay, And I've always found that, I found that to be true. And I find leg press actually does also for me. So what does this tell us? If we know these lifts seem to have direct carryover, train them. And in other words, at the very least, what I would recommend to most people, work your big three, and then you need to have a supplemental exercise in your program that you know personally has very direct carryover. Now, am I saying you shouldn't do anything else to fill in the gaps? No. Most of you are going to need some lat work, okay? Possibly some other arm work, so on and so forth, okay? You're going to need those things. But in our quest for size and strength, even if we're not doing maxes, our rep maxes, with good form, obviously not failing, not true AMRAPs, but close enough, is going to get us big and strong on these big lifts. But accordingly, we're going to have to use other exercises to build the musculature. Otherwise, we just burn out. We get overuse, particularly the squat and deadlift. They're very poor stimulus to fatigue exercises. Great exercises, but they will beat you up, right? You try to do too much work on them. So, that's the thing you could note with the two supplemental lifts I have there. They both have no axial loading. That's not a coincidence. Now, at the time of this, my legs in this particular clip are smaller than they have been when I've had bigger squats. So again, it makes sense why the belt squat or leg press has carryover for me, right? My quads and adductors, usually tell me where my squat is. But isn't that true for all of our lifts? We know that when we have certain muscles that lag, our big three are going to be weaker. So we need to have these exercises that have the carryover. And this is the idea of assistance work, right? This is how assistance work works. And notice I said one exercise. You have your big three lifts, and then you have one assistance for each one. You don't need multiple assistants because either you have a biggest weak link or you don't, and the movement pattern and everything. Everything else beyond that is just accessory work that we do outside of those 6, okay? It's just going to be accessory work. And what is accessory work for? To get you bigger, just general hypertrophy. But this kind of gives you your foundation. If you at least do your big three and have one good assistance exercise that you push for all of them, and then a couple accessory movements to fill in the gaps, you're probably going to be in a good place with your overall programming, right? You're going to be in a pretty good place. You're not going to be far off the mark. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.